Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And AT&T is once again presenting at a conference. And this go around, it's going to be the Deutsche Bank Media, Internet, and Telecom Conference on March 12th, which is this upcoming Tuesday. Now, I know they just recently presented at the Morgan Stanley conference with Jeff McElfresh. But the questions that were asked during that session, I mean, they were the most basic, generic questions that you could possibly ask. So I'm hoping we get a little bit more info out of Pascal. Pascal is usually a little more lenient as to the info that he releases out. Like last year, at the end of last year in December, we already got Q1 numbers out of him, like preliminary numbers. So Q4. That was Q4 at the time. He gave us the Q4 numbers early on a preliminary basis. So maybe at this conference we get somewhat of a feeling of what they're going to be like for the Q1 earnings. I want them to ask more questions about the mid-band rollout. Like, hey, look, you didn't really talk about much C-band DoD deployment at your fourth quarter earning. We really didn't get a guidance from you where you will be at the end of the year. So we need more color around, like, hey, how quickly, how aggressively are you deploying the spectrum? And we know they are aggressive on fiber and some of the other business units, which cost a lot of money. It takes a lot out of the capital allocation. But still, we want to know how aggressive they are on the mid-band, how quickly. They're behind the competition. They're behind Verizon and T-Mobile when it comes to deploying the mid-band. And I don't see that changing even as they accelerate pace, even as they add more C-band DoD. I don't see that changing for the foreseeable future. So that's just some of the questions that I would ask. And I think those are fair questions. Very fair questions. I would ask them a little bit more about Internet Air. How aggressively are they planning to open up slots and deploy that in 24? And of course, a lot of that depends on the mid-band deployment and how aggressive that gets. So that kind of ties into it. Are you going to deploy mid-band as aggressive as we saw in the last few months? Or is the Nokia rip and replace gonna hinder that somewhat? Because these rip and replaces are going to take a bit longer. This is not just a simple upgrade. You have to rip entire Nokia sites and add Ericsson equipment. So you got to keep that in mind. That's going to take a little while. That includes baseband units. I mean, everything has to be ripped from the site. So that's going to take a while. So if within those regions that are Nokia today, if you don't have midband on some of those sites, I mean, I would hope that when they go through the rip and replace and go to Ericsson, that they get midband up on those sites. And maybe that's why they've been quiet, and that's what they're planning to do, that they will be at more scale by the end of the year. Who knows? But publicly, they're not telling us much. So I hope the questions will be a bit better, less generic at this conference. Hopefully they ask about Q1, how the numbers are looking. Hopefully they ask about the future capital allocation and the CapEx. Jeff McElfresh hinted at moving that back down into the teens. He's the CFO, so he would be the person to ask. Like, when do you guys want to pull back on CapEx? When do you want to go down into the teen range? And what does that look like? Is that 19, 18, 17? Maybe he answers that, maybe he doesn't, but maybe he can give us a bit of a better picture as to what that looks like for AT&T and when that time frame is. At 25, 2026, maybe he can answer that for this conference. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Live. See y'all in the next one. Peace.